It was Martin Luther who said, "What the right hand gives, the left hand takes," and we all know that's what governments do. But there's still something pretty incoherent to my mind about cutting the rate of income tax whilst at the same time raising the rate of national insurance. The way I see it, NI is basically the same as income tax. I mean, the Chancellor's even said today that he's harmonising the thresholds for each to £12,570 in July. So he seems to be acknowledging this point. But NI rates are going up in April, the so-called Health and Social Care Levy. Not now up as much as we previously thought, thanks to those threshold changes, but still going up. And by the way, one of the things he doesn't like to talk about is rampant inflation and this idea of fiscal drag. We're all being dragged into paying more income tax and NI in absolute terms. But Rishi wants the front page of The Sun to say he is the tax-cutting Chancellor. And that was the rabbit from the hat. I hate that cliche, but that's what it was. The cut in basic rate tax from 20% to 19%. But, read the small print, not until 2024, the end of the Parliament. There's many a slip between cup and lip, and I think our rabbit may very well be shot by then. The key to everything with tax is timing, and this was quite the exercise in clever temporal presentation by the Chancellor. The timing is the small print, so I wouldn't be rushing to spend the extra 1% just yet. I don't really need to comment about inflation. We saw this coming last year before any mention of Ukraine. Inflation is basically the result of government borrowing that's frankly been out of control. The Chancellor delivered his statement today only hours after inflation was reported to have hit 6.2%, the highest it's been in 30 years, and he talked about forecasts for this coming year averaging 7.4%. My team tell me that this figure underestimates what they are really feeling day to day in terms of living costs. And the Chancellor recognised this. A fuel duty cut of 5p per litre from 6 p.m. this evening. Zero rate VAT on energy efficiency spend. But of course you've got to have the cash in the first place to put solar panels on your roof. And a £500 million pot of targeted support for vulnerable households. The thing is, to my mind, inflation hurts discretionary spending. There isn't a great deal you can do about your energy bills or your supermarket shop, but if there is less left over at the end of the month, that affects your meals out, your trips to the cinema, your holiday plans, all of these little things that make life worth living. So I wonder, has the Chancellor done enough to avoid being punished by a fed-up electorate at the ballot box next election? I guess we'll have to wait and see. After the past 2 years of unprecedented splurge, the Chancellor is now desperate to claw back the Tories' tattered reputation for monetary competence. And he told us today that borrowing was back under control. He set out some forecasts from the OBR. But I thought he made two very important caveats if you were listening carefully. The first thing, he said that the OBR has not accounted for the full impact of Ukraine in its models. And secondly, he made a point of saying that we will be paying an eye-watering £83 billion of debt interest next year, 4 times the amount that was paid last year. Now, just to put that into context, 83 billion quid is about the same as we spent on defence and education combined last year. It's a huge sum of money, and I think that really puts the recent interest rate increases into some sort of context. Now, the Bank of England's inflation forecasts, I think, are starting to look a little bit like their interest rate forecasts, and I'm not persuaded that the borrowing is quite as under control as the Chancellor would have us believe today. Business tax has been kicked into the long grass of the autumn budget this year, so make sure you join us for breakfast. But we did have a pretty clear steer as to the areas that the Chancellor is looking. Number 1, changes to the apprenticeship levy. Number 2, reform of the R&D tax credit system, and number 3, something he always likes to do, tinkering with capital allowances. I think we can expect changes in these 3 key areas between now and the budget in autumn. The type and the scale of change will, I expect, depend on how entrenched this whole situation in Ukraine becomes and what impact it has on global supply chains.